What's up, guys? Welcome to Southern Hike. I'm Taylor, and today we have got one heck of a video. I had been waiting to do this video for months, and I asked people to help me out with this video a couple months ago, and I am so excited to finally share it with you guys. A lot of the people in this video you probably already know, and if you don't, I want you to make sure that you go check out their channels. They will be linked below. I was very appreciative that they helped support this video, and I could not be more thankful for their support, honestly. So when you're watching this video, after you get done, go to these channels, make sure to check out their latest videos, like their videos, put some comments on there, and subscribe to them. These are super awesome other backpacking YouTubers, and I just want to make sure we're giving the support to them because they deserve it. So today we're talking about a big topic in the backpacking community. This is a question that I always am curious about what others do in these for their sleep system, and I thought about doing this video months ago, and I was like, you know what, everybody is kind of different on this topic, and let's go out and get some other opinions. I was going to reach out to a bunch of people and see what they use when they're out backpacking as far as quilts and sleeping bags. Everybody has a different opinion, everybody has a different preference, and a lot of times somebody just sticks with what they started with and don't have one hate towards the other, or myself in particular, I use both. I will do a small part in this video talking about what me and Rachel use, but I plan to do each one of these YouTubers in alphabetical order. I have no favorites. I love all of these channels, and I try to support all these channels the best I can. So I'm asking you, if you're watching this video and you like this content, to please support them also. Again, all right, guys, so we're gonna start alphabetically, go through each one of these YouTubers and check out what they use, and make sure to leave in the comments what you think. And guys, the biggest easy way you can support this channel is to like this video. So go ahead and do that right now and support. It would be really appreciated, and thank you for doing that. So let's get started. First video is from As a Crow Flies Hiking. This is Brad. He has an awesome channel. He gets out a lot, has a lot of different trip videos, which I'm jealous of and love to watch his videos. He's really good. He calls himself old a lot. I don't understand. He does a lot and does more mileage than I do in a lot of his videos, so I can totally support what he's doing. So let's see what he has to say.
What's up, everybody? Crow here from As a Crow Flies Hiking. Southern Hikes, Taylor, asked me to give my thoughts about using a quilt or a sleeping bag. For me, and I'm no expert, this is just what's worked for me for the past several years, I use a quilt. For most of my hikes, I use an Enlightened Equipment Revelation. This is a 20-degree quilt. It has a zipper on the bottom. If I had to do it again, I would get the Enigma from Enlightened Equipment. And I did. For a 0-degree bag, I have the Enigma. This is a 0-degree Enlightened Equipment quilt. Use that 20-degree quilt 80% of the time. I think 20 degrees in the southeast works well for me. That works in the fall, in the winter, a lot of times. And then a few times I use the 0-degree if it's just really, really cold. And then in the spring, I use the 20-degree quilt. But in the summer, I have typically used a Costco quilt. My mother was a home ec teacher, and so she's a really good sewer. So she took a Costco blanket and she sewed a foot box in it. And that gives me the blanket / quilt that I need for the summer. For me, it's all about the bulk in my pack. The sleeping bag can be the largest thing that I have in bulkiness in my pack. So using a quilt over a sleeping bag reduces some of the bulk. I also know that anything underneath me, whether it being a hammock or a tent, is just gonna be compressed by my weight against the ground or a sleeping pad. So I typically rely on my sleeping pad. I have the Neo Air X Lite. It has a good R value, somewhere in 3.2 or 3.5, something like that. And so it usually keeps me warm underneath. And that's what I rely on for my warmth underneath. All that bulkiness of a sleeping bag, I typically don't use because a quilt has always worked for me. That's my thoughts, just one opinion, and I know everybody's got one, but I use a quilt over a sleeping bag. Thanks, Southern Hikes, for letting me in on this conversation.
All right, well, you heard it from Brad. One of the biggest things for going to quilts is bulkiness in your pack, and of course, weight. I can tell you for myself that my synthetic sleeping bags I've had in the past definitely will take a lot of room up in your pack, and why it really considered me getting a quilt. I'm also an Enlightened Equipment fan, so that's awesome to see from Brad. Next on the list is Backcountry Pilgrim. Doug, he is from California. He's got a lot of awesome videos. Looks like he has Yosemite in his backyard, one of our favorite national parks. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey, I'm Doug. This is Backcountry Pilgrim. Oh, actually, right now, this is Southern Hike. I have been asked by Taylor from Southern Hike to go over my decision to carry a quilt versus a sleeping bag in my sleep system. Now, I've made a complete, detailed video on the kinds of things that you should think about when you're deciding between a quilt and a sleeping bag, so I'm not going to go into a lot of details here. Instead, I'm just going to say that what it came down to for me were two primary factors. First, as with most gear, I wanted something that was as light as possible that still could fulfill the function that I needed. On most quilts, there are no zippers, there are no draft collars, and because you're not fully enclosed in a quilt, you're not smashing any material that is no longer doing you any good, and that means you're also not carrying that material, having that extra bulk and that extra weight that isn't going to keep you warm once you're in it anyway. Another reason that I prefer a quilt to a sleeping bag is its ability to be modified and be part of a modular system. And what I mean by that is that it's very easy to adjust the spectrum of your temperature comfort with a quilt versus a sleeping bag. Because a quilt is probably not going to have a hood with draft collars and other things like that, you are going to be more reliant on the clothes and other things, hats, sleep pads, sleep pillows, those kinds of things that are part of your sleep system to control your temperature. Now, that may not sound like an advantage at first, because now it seems like you've got to have a bunch of extra stuff, but I've found that I typically carry the things that I would need for that anyway, and because they are not part of my quilt built in, I'm not carrying them if I don't need them. Kind of the way you are in a typical bed situation, I can do that with a quilt. I can roll around, I can put limbs out into the cool air, I can fluff some air into it. On mine, I can even undo the foot box and turn it into a blanket. So my quilt can function in a number of different ways, number of different sleep patterns, and a number of different temperature ranges that I can't do if I've got a sleeping bag. If you're going to be in a situation where death is imminent if you get a draft, a sleeping bag is a safer way to go, but of course at that point you're going to be needing a next level kind of sleeping bag, and not something like this Ozark Trail that my wife found at a garage sale for $5. And in that case, you're going to need two sleeping bags anyway, because nobody wants to be stuffed inside a 4-season sleeping bag in the summer. So if you're going to have two anyway, why not have a quilt and a sleeping bag rather than several sleeping bags that can't be modified the way a quilt can? It's really more about the right tool for the right job. This quilt is the most expensive and nicest piece of gear that I own for backpacking. In 2 of the 3 backpacking trips that I've taken recently, I slept in a $7 Ozark Trail sleeping bag liner or a cheapo sleeping bag, and I was completely fine because that's all that was required for that particular trip. However, when I need something that is very warm and very versatile, it's good to have the quilt. Alright, I hope you are enjoying this video. If you are, give it a like and subscribe to Southern Hike. Southern Hike is a great husband-wife backpacking channel. I'm a subscriber, I'm a fan. You should be too.
Man, Doug gave me a better explanation of sleeping bags and quilts. Thank you, Doug, so much. There's a lot of great points in there, especially for what the material is up under you when you're laying there. That is one of the biggest points you see about quilts. Also, not just weight, because it cuts that weight out, honestly. I guess you can tie that together. That is a great explanation. UGQ has some great information. I'll make sure to tag that video in below, or actually up above where Doug talked about one of his videos. Go check that video out and make sure to like it and mention that you saw it from this video. Next on the list is one of my favorites also, Tim with Backpacking with Buckley. He's got a quick snippet of what he does. Let's see what he says.
Hey guys, Tim from Backpacking with Buckley. Taylor from Southern Hikes wanted my opinion on sleeping bag versus quilt. And I'm resting on a sleeping bag right now, which as you can see, is quite bulky. This is Whitney's 15-degree Nemo sleeping bag, and although it is an awesome choice for sleeping bags, I say ditch it, and I go with a quilt. Much smaller option as far as I'm concerned. A little easier for rolling around at night. Cons to a quilt are there are some underdraft risk, but I don't find that being a hammock camper, so for me, I find it's a quilt. Thanks everybody. I'm glad you wanted my opinion.
All right, guys, you heard it from Tim. That is especially another thing that I think about too is drafts. I'll talk about that in my part, but it's very important that you can't get nervous with drafts in quilt. A lot of good ways around that, but it's one of the cons of a quilt. All right, next on the list is Greg Morton Outdoors. This guy is a comedian for sure. I've seen him a lot around the community. He's a great guy, and I am super jealous because he lives in Colorado Springs, Colorado, where it's like backpackers heaven out there. Me and Rachel both love Colorado. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey Taylor, thank you for asking for my input on the quilt versus sleeping bag debate. And don't tell my wife, but I go both ways. That's right, I've got quilts and I have sleeping bags. However, my sleeping bags are quilt-like, if that makes any sense. So the two sleeping bags that I use are the Nemo Jazz and the 20-degree backcountry bed by Sierra Designs. Both of them are extremely roomy on the inside, and even the Sierra Designs one does not have a zipper, and it does have like a quilt that folds over you. Now, both of those I use during the winter time, definitely the colder months, because the hood comes up around my head. But definitely overall prefer quilts. Why do I like the quilts? I'm a back sleeper, I'm a side sleeper, I'm a stomach sleeper. I'm all over the place when I'm sleeping. And with a quilt, you'll rotate underneath that quilt to get into your different sleeping positions without exposing your body to the elements. If you try and do that in something like a traditional mummy bag here, the See the Summit, what happens is when you rotate, the bag rotates with you, and all that compressed down and everything that was on your back that's not lofting, trapping in heat, is now exposed to the elements, and that's cold. Second reason I like them, weight. Quilts are a lot lighter than sleeping bags because you don't have the back portion. The third reason I like quilts, versatility. You can zip up the foot box, you can cinch it down around you and kind of use it like a sleeping bag. If you get too hot, open up the foot box. If you're still too hot, open up the entire thing, unzip the foot box and use it like, a comforter from your home. But lastly, and maybe most importantly, you can't do this with a sleeping bag, but you can do it with a quilt.
All right then. I don't think I've ever done that before. But man, Greg has a lot of great points. You honestly can start seeing a common theme here. A lot of these pros and cons are very common between a lot of backpackers. Greg, thank you for contributing. Next on the list is KillQuest. Make sure to check out their channel. We just did a live podcast with them. They interviewed us for over an hour. If you'd like to learn more about me and Rachel, there's some plenty of interesting questions there and answers. I will link that video below with their channel, but check that out. Let's see what they have to say.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Quest.
Hey, hey.
We are out here today to talk about sleeping bags.
We are.
Everything from ultralight to ultra heavy.
So we have custom quilts made by UGQ. These weigh in at 21 ounces. Custom because I got my favorite color, purple.
I got maize and blue.
Yeah, you did. And these are 850 fill and our 20-degree bags. And these are also made just down the road from us in Jackson, Michigan.
Yeah, so those are our ultralights.
Yes.
And then for our everyday overlanding and regular camping, we have a couple of big Agnes bags, 15 degree, 650 down. This is the anvil horn for the men's. Colleen has the Daisy May. So I have a left zip, Colleen has a right zip, so you can zip them together if you want them together. But yeah, they're just a good general bag for regular camping.
They are. There's a couple nice features that I really like. I'm a bit of a side sleeper, so it's comfortable that way. It also has this really cool thing called a pillow bar, so you can like stuff your pillow in there so it doesn't kind of, move over,
Move out of the way.
through the middle of the night and stuff like that. So
Those are nice.
yeah, they were great.
Then
Oh my
for
God.
winter camping,
Ah!
we have the big kahuna here.
Oh gosh,
This
I love
is
it.
a negative 40 degree bag by Marmot.
Right.
This is the CWM
Yep.
800 fill down,
It is.
weighing in at a whopping 4 pounds 9 ounces.
It does.
I mean, look at that loft.
It's crazy. See, these are super toasty, and we've had them twice now winter camping.
It's like sleeping in a pillow.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Gotta love them.
Yeah.
So anyways, these are our bags that we use all
They are.
season long.
Yep.
We'd love to hear what kind of bags you all use. Got any comments? Hit us up. We'll see you all in the next quest.
Yeah, you will. Cheers.
Cheers.
I think on the coldest day in Georgia, that sleeping bag would not work. You'd be cooking in it. That is crazy. That is a sweet sleeping bag. Couldn't imagine the cost on that thing, but wow, that is warm. Another contributor of I can't never pronounce that name, UGQ Quilts. They have got some awesome quilts. They're in Michigan, like they said, so check them out if you're interested in quilts. But thank you guys, that is another great contributor, and they have a great selection of quilts and sleeping bags and what they use in the backcountry. Next is another fellow Georgian, Andy from Metro on the Move. He has got an awesome channel. He visits one of our local trails all the time. Let's see what he has to say.
Hey guys, it's Metro. Southern Hike reached out and asked me why I use a quilt instead of a traditional sleeping bag, and my answer is very simple. Since I'm what you call a rotisserie sleeper, I toss and turn throughout the entire night, and I need something with a lot more space so I don't feel so constrained. My quilt actually attaches to the bottom side of my sleeping pad, giving me a lot more room to toss and turn throughout the night, and that's the reason why I use a quilt instead of a sleeping bag.
All right, Andy kept it simple. Honestly, one of the most common factors is side sleepers. You heard it from him. It's an easier way to be able to rotate as a rotisserie in your sleeping bag, or excuse me, your quilt, and not have to worry about getting all twisted up and claustrophobic in there. Let's move on to Steven with My Life Outdoors. He's got another great channel. Check him out. Let's see what he's got to say.
Hey everyone, Steven here at My Life Outdoors. So quilts versus sleeping bags. You know, for me, it really depends on the time of year. In the summertime, in a place like Colorado, I really prefer a quilt because it's lightweight, it gives me some freedom to toss and turn, which I do a lot. And I know that it's not gonna get so cold that I have to worry about drafts if I accidentally pull up the sides of the quilt when I'm tossing and turning. But in the shoulder seasons, when I know it's gonna be a little bit colder, well, then I prefer a sleeping bag because once again, I know that I'm not gonna have to worry about drafts because that bag is going to be covering me completely, including a hood. And when it's colder like that, I don't mind the more restrictive feel of a sleeping bag. So for me, well, it all depends. Thanks, Taylor.
All right, you heard it again. Another person that uses a little bit of both. Honestly, that's a common theme also. You notice that, especially in the summertime, quilts just work really well. I can tell you from our trip we just had on the Timberline Trail that having that quilt when I was using it, when it was like hot on the first night, was great because when it kind of was hot earlier in the night, I kept it off me. When it got later in the night, I was easily able to just pull it up over me with my Nemo tensor, and I was getting warm even as the cooler morning started coming in. So that is one of the benefits of summer backpacking with a quilt. Now, next on the list is Nicole, and Nicole hikes a lot. Now, she's on a little bit of hiatus with her channel, but she is an awesome backpacker also. She gets to visit a lot of cool places, and I would love to hear what her opinion is. So let's see what she uses.
So my sleep system while I'm out in the backcountry is the Outdoor Vitals 15-degree sleeping bag. This is a hybrid bag, meaning that it's made from both loft tech as well as down feathers. This does a great job to keep me nice and warm at night. I'm a cold sleeper. I like that it has a zipper that zips up in the middle of the bag. It gives me a great fit. I have never had any issues with the zipper. It washes well and easy. You can just wash it and pop it into the dryer. It dries quickly when the bag gets moist because it is so fluffy. It comes in at 2 pounds 9 ounces. It's barely over 3 pounds with the compression sack. The compression sack does a great job making it small and compact to fit easily into my backpack. And also, it didn't break the bank. It was a good budget option for me, and it is so far held out very well. I'm very happy with the Outdoor Vitals 15-degree sleeping bag. So when it comes to using a quilt, I use a very lightweight quilt on warm summer days rather than my 15-degree sleeping bag, of course. And this is a Blue Ridge Active packable down throw that I ordered for 40 bucks on Amazon. It's very inexpensive. It's a very lightweight down throw blanket, And this works just fine for me in place of the sleeping bag on warm summer nights at camp. I just throw this over myself. And it is also what I use on very cold nights up in the mountains when I'm up in elevation. I actually like to put this down throw inside of my Outdoor Vitals sleeping bag and wrap it around myself and then zip it up. That works very well for adding additional warmth on a very chilly night out in the backcountry.
All right, another fan of Outdoor Vitals. You've seen her setup, how she keeps it clean, how it works well. That is honestly, I've thought about getting one of their sleeping bags or their hybrids or their quilts. I've kind of marched different around. I've got a lot of store credit with them I need to use. Thought about getting an extra one just to see how theirs work out. I know that some of their older ones were not the best out there, but I've heard that some of their newer setups that they've kind of new and improved work really well, so I want to check them out too. Last on the list is Outdoor Essentials. Tyler, he is I don't know if it was the beginning of this year I found his channel, or he might have found us first, but he is really good, does some really good filming. He has some awesome information. He's been doing a little bit about bears lately and has some really good tips, and he's just a funny guy. Let's see what he has to say.
What's up? I'm Tyler from Outdoor Essentials, and I am part of the sleeping bag gang. Now, there are some benefits to quilts, but I will say this. I much prefer sleeping bags because I think they're more versatile. In my experience, sleeping bags are warmer. They have a hood that, because of the shape that they're in, they are able to keep, what is this? They're able to keep you warmer. There's also no rule saying you can't unzip your sleeping bag and use it somewhat like a quilt. But then in those cases where you're sleeping and it gets freaking cold, you can zip it up and you're toasty warm. So in that case, I am a sleeping bag lover. I will always be a sleeping bag lover, and you quilt people can still love your quilts. I promise. It's okay. We can be friends still.
All right, you heard it from Tyler. He is a sleeping bag man. So that's honestly good points too. You can do what he said and it will work also. That is a very valid option if you want to stick to one type of quilt or sleeping bag year round. There's options to go either way. Last but not least, so Southern Hike, we start with this. So we're at the bottom of the list. Let's see what we have to say. So, all right guys, so for Southern Hike, let me run through it real quickly. So Rachel is definitely a cold sleeper, so she definitely right now sticks to a sleeping bag. We're actually considering getting her a quilt because she likes how light it is, how much easier to move around and pull in and out of your pack. And honestly, she just noticed that how she's seen me use my quilt, it'll work well for her. So we're experimenting with getting her a quilt. For me, I use a quilt in the summer, fall, and spring, but in the deep winter, I have a sleeping bag that I use just because I like being cocooned in there. Some people really don't like that, as you've seen some of our other YouTubers talk about. It's just not for them. But for me, I find it as a good option. It works really well, and so I like a sleeping bag because I also like how I can tuck my pillow in the top, keep everything put together. I can zip myself in and be really cocooned inside of that. So to keep it simple for us, Rachel has a sleeping bag. She uses that year round as a cold sleeper, looking at a quilt. But for me, I use both. Quilt for spring, summer, and fall, and then a sleeping bag for the winter. And we actually have 20-degree sleeping bags for the winter right now. We're looking at getting some 0 degrees so we can experiment with some colder temperatures. All right, so that's for me. All right, guys, you've seen a little bit of my bald head there. So you've seen it from a ton of backpackers, awesome YouTubers. Check out all of your channels. I'd really love to know in the comments if you're actually in the middle of deciding what you're going to use, or if you're wanting to make some changes, or if you're wanting to get your first quilt. A lot of times everybody starts out with a sleeping bag because that's just traditional. Quilts have really picked up over the last few years. There was a lot of small cottage companies that got into it, and then now some of the bigger brand names are actually coming out with quilts, so it's becoming a big option when it comes to backpacks. A lot of people that get into it already have sleeping bags, and then they hear about quilts, so I'm really trying to figure out what is the best for them and are quilts worth it. I think you've seen today that quilts are very popular. People that do a lot of backpacking found that quilts are just the best option in their opinion. As you just heard me talk about, we use a little bit of both, but you can go one way or the other or do both like I just said, but it's just up to you, honestly. If you still have questions, leave them in the comments. I'm sure I or some of the others that are a part of this video can answer your questions. There is tons of information out there about this topic. It's a big topic in the backpacking community. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I want to say thank you again to all that contributed to this video. Y'all are awesome. awesome. It was amazing when I reached out to each one of you that you were so quick to say, heck yeah, let's do it. Thank you again. It's much appreciated, and I hope that I can help each one of these channels back one day. Guys, thanks again for watching this video. Again, if you enjoyed it, make sure to like. I hope you enjoyed our Timberline videos. We really enjoyed putting them together for you, and they got a lot of great feedback. It was an awesome trip. We're honestly a little upset that we're still not on that trip because Oregon just had so much to give and we really enjoyed it. Guys, thanks again for watching this video. I know this video is a little long. I hope you stick through to the end, and I hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you next week.